Hello everyone, welcome to our character profile episode about Shona Platt.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, Oh.
That's not
You
the
just
first
scared
time.
the cat.
Sorry, the cat is disgusted.
Sorry, Abby.
The first of many terrible puns that I'm going to be making this episode. Hello.
Really? What other ones have you got?
It's pretty much all variations of the same, really.
Welcome
yeah.
to the show. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shona Platt was born on the 6th.
I'm fine. Are we going to get straight into this, are we?
What else do you want to say?
Hi, I'm Michael.
I'm Gemma. This is a Coronation Street podcast about a character that's been in the show for a while.
In the
Coronation
show.
Street? Oh.
Hey Gemma, let's get on with
I'm going.
Let's get on with the show. Shona Platt character profile.
Listen, she was born on
Don't turn off, I'm going to shut up now.
She was born on the 6th of October, 1987. She has a sister who has not been cast or appeared ever.
No, and it's probably been forgotten about. I don't think that Shona's sister's been mentioned for, I'm going to say 5 years or so. Has she been in it that long? Yeah. But I did find out that that Julia Goulding, who plays her, has said that she'd quite like Vicky McClure to play.
I quite like that too.
I can see a resemblance.
I can see it.
I definitely can.
She married David Platt in 2019 and she's got a child called Clayton Hibbs, who was born in 2001. She first appeared on the 6th of December 2016 and she has been in over 634 episodes.
No, sorry, I've changed this. But last week she'd been in 634 episodes. Now she's been in a bit more. So I'm going to say 638.
Just add on one for everyone she's been in since this, please,
yes,
people.
You do that for us if you listen to this in the future.
Okay, right. And she's played by, as you said, Julia Goulding.
Yes.
And she is the 98th most featured character in Coronation Street thus far.
Ever.
As we're on the 23rd of February 2022 at the moment.
Broken into the top 100, which I'm very pleased about because I do love me a bit of Shona Platt.
And she's beaten David's previous wife, Kylie, who's in 100th place.
Yeah, Kylie Platt is in 100th in the top 100 most featured
Shona.
characters ever. So well done, Shona. You've beaten her.
Yeah.
So I love Shona Platt. I don't know whether anybody has not picked that up yet. But I think she's pretty amazing. Gemma, you're a recent convert to Shona love.
Do you like her still?
I think she's bloody brilliant. Why?
I'm just trying to think because, there's definitely a period, isn't there? There's before the box and after the box.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, pre-box Shona I loved. Slightly post-box Shona, not so much of a fan of.
See, I love post-box Shona, but pre-box Shona.
Post-box Shona is
is
that the one? Is that where you put your letters?
Post-box
Shona. Post-box Shona
goes with a calling boy, and pre-box no.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I wasn't a
much.
fan of how she went a little bit funny. After.
Well, there you go. See, we represent everybody.
She's mellowed out now, but
in the Coronation Street fandom.
You've talked recently on the podcast about how you've recently grown to love Shona and David as a couple.
I was not even. It took me until probably like October last year to thaw to it.
It's because David and Kylie were such a beloved couple, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, Paula Lane, who plays Kylie, was fantastic, but there was always something that it didn't quite sit with me, and I think that's because I really enjoyed Tina with David, and I thought that Tina McIntyre and David were fantastic, and I thought it was really such a shame that their relationship lasted such a short period of time, and then Paula Lane comes along and says, "Hi, I'm David Platt's new wife," and I was like, "Oh, haven't you know Tina, are you?" And she was a bit too scally-ish. But Shona Platt, like straight away, I was like, I love this character. I
like them more as a comedy duo, which they've put the brakes on a bit for that with those characters at the moment because of the current storyline the Platt family is going through.
And there was comedy stuff with Kylie, but I think that peak Kylie was obviously the Callum saga with the Platts, and that was that much darker. And there was also, all the drug stuff, and then when Paula Lane went off on a maternity leave, it was like, oh, she's left David, and then you had the bit with her sleeping with Nick and everything, and it just didn't feel like it hit the comedic notes quite as often as I would have liked. There were a few things, we will talk about Shona in a minute, I promise. There were a few things that I remember really enjoying about Kylie, like I've got a vague memory of David and Kylie going to a bar somewhere and pretending to be someone else, like as a bit of a role play, a bit like Tyrone and Fizz did recently. But on the whole,
doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. We're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about lovely Shona Platt, played by Julia Goulding, who is trained at RADA, don't you know? I know,
RADA.
Fabulous.
You can
RADA. But you could tell because she's bloody actress, isn't she? And before Coronation Street, she did lots of theatre work. And there was a short film that she was in called New Gods. Not seen it, don't know much about that. But that's it. She's done that and Coronation Street. That was like her TV debut, her role in Coronation Street. And I mean, I'm quite happy if it's going to stay her only TV role, to be honest, because she is very, very good. What I really, really loved about the story about Julia getting onto Coronation Street is what a huge Corrie fan she was. And I remember the interview she did back in 2016 when she first came into it, and she was saying, "Love Coronation Street when I was little, and it's like my dream role." And you hear about people, you know, sometimes when people come onto Coronation Street, they say, "Oh yeah, well, I grew up and my mum watched Coronation Street and it was always on." But with Julia Goulding, it was like she was proper obsession. I
love this about
Coronation Street, so much so that she even had her 5th birthday party on the covels. I mean, amazing. So that was when you could go to the old Key Street set on the Granada Studios tour. What 5? Like, I thought I was quite a Corrie nerd when I was little, but I think at the age of 5, I don't think that I would have wanted to go to the Granada Studios tour. But
imagine all their friends as well. What were their friends thinking? And their friends' parents.
That's very true, actually. I mean, there was more on the Granada Studios tour than just Coronation Street. I mean, you could see the Sooty show and everything as well there.
Oh, okay,
so that's probably what.
Crack those out.
Yeah.
For all the other kids.
Honestly, it was amazing. Julia said in an interview, "I remember looking through all the letterboxes on the street and being annoyed that we couldn't actually go inside the Rovers. I'm still pinching myself now that this is my job." She said her favourite character back in the early days was Bet Lynch. She said she loved Bet and Raquel. This is my era. I mean, me too. So, you know, mid to early 90s, absolutely golden era of Coronation Street in my book. So she loved Bet, she loved Raquel. When back in Bet and Alec had the Rovers, she said she remembered when Jack put cladding on the house, Vera went mad. So she just knows it. She knows the show, and I think that's sometimes what can make a real difference in just how you kind of shine off of the screen, because you can tell she's loving every minute of it, and she feels so privileged to be on it, and it's like her dream come true. It means such a lot, and it comes out because she is like one of the smiliest people on Coronation Street.
Here's another quote that I love from her. She said, "My first scenes were me living at Eileen's house. I couldn't believe I was living in Elsie Tanner's old house. I had to open the door, pick up some milk, and see David across the road. I leant on the door, looking up and down the street I've known all my life, and completely welled up with tears."
I love it. I love it. I mean, the fact that she could even do the deep cut reference of Elsie Tanner.
I know. I'm so impressed. But yeah, she's no Fairweather fan, is she?
She's not. I mean, did you remember? I can't remember how long ago this was now. I think I've got it later on in the show notes. But she did do the Coronation Street versus Emmerdale soap quiz.
She should be on it all the time.
2017. She should. Well, they did win the year that that she was in it as well. Yeah. She's a genius, a bona fide Corrie genius. And you know, the cast versus fans quiz that we did this past summer, she got 10 out of 10 on questions about Shona.
She's
so
fabulous.
Was it out of 5?
Can't say enough nice things about.
I can't. I'll try. Yeah. Gemma, tell me a little bit about Shona's early history, please. Before joining Coronation Street, what was she up to?
This was quite funny because I was reading this earlier, and I was looking at Julia did this and that, and she said this, and then I scrolled down, and I didn't realise this had now gone into
character territory.
I was like, what a tragic upbringing. It says, so pre-debut on the street, Shona, not Julia, she was brought up on the Paul Robeson estate in Wythenshawe. See, I thought that was made up for Coronation Street, but it must be real.
Yeah, Paul Robeson estate. Wythenshawe, that's real.
Wythenshawe, yes.
And if you know much about Manchester, that name will maybe give you thoughts.
Well,
about
listen.
How sorry for any Wythenshawean listeners, don't you?
Wythenshawean. And then it says, pregnant, age 13 with Dane Hibbs' child. And I was like, oh, hang on. And then I thought, Dane Hibbs sounds familiar. Must be some kind of pop star. And I thought, is he a paedophile?
You're thinking of Dane Bowers?
No, I don't know what I was thinking. Then she ends a relationship because she doesn't think he's a great role model, and he's abusive, and she raises Clayton alone, and that's the name that tipped me off.
That's so funny. So you got all this way down and you thought we were talking about Julia Goulding.
I was like, wow, I can't believe that she managed to do all this when she was pregnant.
Shona had a fairly rough upbringing. Wythenshawe is the place where the pub is that the Dog and Gun is filmed in.
Yes.
And we went there and feared for our lives, quite frankly.
No, we didn't.
No, it's a lovely place. Lovely place.
Okay, so Dane and his other son, Macca, come back into Clayton's life, and his behaviour starts to decline, and he goes and lives with them. Yeah,
because Clayton was supposed to have been like a good little boy for the first 10 years of his life, and Clayton, he's not been in the show for a few years now, but he's a right little scrote bag.
Well, see, here we go. This is my question. Is this the same as what happened to Max? Has he been groomed to be a criminal?
Well, there are absolutely parallels. I mean, they've been brought up in the show as much between Clayton and Max, and I think that's one of the reasons why Kylie's being very careful with how she parents Max. Because
you mean Shona?
Sorry, what did I say?
Kylie.
Oh my gosh, how embarrassing! Shona is being very, very careful about how she parents Max because she doesn't want to push him away from her the same way that Clayton was turned from Shona. So,
in July 2016, this is when Clayton stabs and kills Kylie Platt and then gets sentenced to 15 years in prison. Now, we didn't know who Clayton didn't have any relationship to anybody on the show.
No.
When this happened. It's only later that this gets, would you say retconned? Don't know. But
it's not too long before Shona comes onto the programme, to be honest. It's like we're only talking like 6 months before her debut, so I'm thinking this probably was planned.
And this was July that he gets kind of gets offed. Shona then starts a relationship with Nathan Curtis, who is the person who grooms Bethany Platt, and he tries to get her into helping him in that kind of stuff, and she escapes and ends up homeless.
Has many I don't know comparisons been drawn or links been drawn between that kind of grooming?
No,
I don't know, because I'm sure they talked about Bethany recently, but I think. Honestly, I think that when people think about Shona, the whole she was involved in Nathan's grooming ring has kind of been forgotten about, hasn't it? But that's what got her into the programme. Do you want to just finish off with what she actually did? I just want to say,
this definitely feels like there's a massive difference between being groomed to accept behaviour done to you and being groomed to actually do something harmful to other people.
Yeah, but I mean, there are parallels that
there's definitely parallels. Drawn. Right, so 2016, she appears on the street, the end of the year, it's all Christmassy. She bumps into David at a bar in Manchester, and she tries to flirt with him, but he's not interested. He's still grieving.
Yeah.
So she steals his wallet, and he finds her again a few days later, and he doesn't care about anything except the picture of Kylie inside. And she's like, I don't know what you mean, I don't have it. And she then looks at it away from him, opens the wallet and sees this picture of Kylie. And we're not supposed to know this, although we guessed, I think, fairly early on. We're not supposed to know that she knows who this woman is because her son killed
her. I can't remember whether at this point they even made a thing of like, oh look, she knows who she is, because it was in early 2017, we'll get to in a minute, when she goes to Kylie's grave, and I think that might be the moment where it was like, hang on a minute, how does she know?
Well, they made it, they kind of gave us loads of little clues, and everyone was trying to guess and thinking about what could it be, and then I think we all just realised it was fairly obvious, but Coronation Street insisted on dragging this mystery out for months.
They can't replan it just because some clever people might have guessed and theorised. Otherwise, they'd never get anything done because people are always
just
guessing.
made it too. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. I don't care.
It was a fun little mystery.
2017, Michael.
No, you haven't finished off the last thing in 2016.
Oh, all right. Okay, all right. So Billy finds her in St Mary's, and at this point, he'd given up being a vicar because he realised it was boring. And but he takes this as a sign that he should go back to being a vicar. And look at him now.
I know, archdeacon and everything.
He takes Shona to the street with him, and then they end up having Christmas dinner with the Grimshaws.
How lovely. Yeah. And
right, now you can move on.
Thank you. 2017, vintage year for Coronation Street.
Was it?
2017 was, yeah, that was the Who Pushed Ken's year. That was,
Okay.
prime Pat
If only
Phelan.
we could go back to those
That was all
days.
this grooming stuff. Honestly, it was fantastic.
Do you think 2023 is going to be for EastEnders what 2017 was?
It might be.
for Coronation
2017 was Bloody Brilliant on Coronation Street.
Oh, you had to correct there, didn't you?
Hmm?
I said 2017 and you were like, it's 2017.
I didn't even notice. So Todd, now he's dating Billy at this time, thinks that Shona's taken up too much of Billy's attention and kicks her out of number 11 when he finds David's wallet in her possession. So he kind of thinks he's one of the first to realise that she's a bit of a scallywag like that. So Shona has to get tracked down by Billy, who persuades her to go back and stay at number 11 again and gets her the job at Roy's. So for all those well-buttered roles that she's been responsible for all over the years, we've got Billy to thank for that. Apparently, the backstory that they said for why she wanted to work behind the counter there is that back in the day in the Paul Robeson estate, she used to tour around it selling food out the back of the van. So she's got food serving in her blood, one might say. February, this is when we see Shona visiting Kylie's grave, and I think I've got a vague memory of it just like being at the end of an episode, and there wasn't necessarily anything building up to it maybe, but we just see her there at the grave crying, and it was like, what's going on there? What's the link between her and Kylie? Is she a secret sister of Kylie? Were she and Kylie lovers in the past? What is it? But like you said earlier, I think by the time it was revealed what the link between her and Clayton and Kylie and everything was, we kind of guessed it a little bit. But I still appreciated that they even went to the trouble of putting a mystery in. Do like a good mystery.
Oh, I love a mystery.
Mm-hmm. So Shona gets worried when she hears Gail saying that Bethany is dating someone called Nathan. So obviously Shona, like we said, had been involved in his business before realising just how dodgy it was. But so when she hears the name Nathan, she's like, uh-oh, alarm bells ringing here. But then Gail says to her, he's whatever age it is, and Shona's like, oh, that's younger than my Nathan was, because Gail is also under the impression that Nathan is younger than he actually is. So basically,
it's misunderstandings.
Misunderstanding. Gail got the age wrong, so Shona thinks that's okay.
Ruined everything again.
Not my Nathan. Never mind. And that around that time as well, Shona overhears Gail and Sarah talking about David planning to blow himself up with Clayton's prison van. So I think this was
drama queen.
Clayton was been transferred to court or something like that, and he was almost kind of suicidal around that point.
Well,
wasn't
here
he?
we go. See, this is what I want to tell anybody here who's listening. You might feel down at the moment. Just think how sad David was at this point. And now imagine how happy he is at the moment, and just think good times are always just around the corner.
There were some scenes of him scoping out the prison and stuff, wasn't there? Which is actually round the back of one of the town halls in Manchester that we've seen, haven't we? I think we visited that gate that he was going to blow up. But anyway, Shona overhears them talking about this, and then this causes her to reveal to Gail, my son is Clayton. So
I don't want him to get blown up.
I don't want him to get blown up by your son, thanks. But they agree to keep each other's secrets. Shona refuses Gail's offer of £400 to leave the street.
Why?
And
why does she offer her money to go away?
Because she doesn't want somebody related to Clayton hanging around, David
Gail likes
and
offering
everyone.
people money to
I know,
go away.
she did that to Kylie, didn't she? When
Yeah.
Kylie was going to marry David, she tried to buy her off then. But
Nobody's ever given me money to go away, but I bet they wish they could.
nobody's given you any money to try and get away from me.
No.
Not my mum. She didn't try that one on you.
No.
No.
In fact, I've got
Quite
more
liked you,
money
I think.
for hanging around you. It's
Well, there we
been
go.
quite lucrative for me.
Gail and Shona end up getting kind of a bit friendly because Gail helps Shona out around the cafe. And
What a plot twist.
I know. So in May, Shona discovers that Nathan is actually her Nathan, dodgy pedo
no.
Nathan, and he's now grooming Bethany.
Oh.
She tries to get him to stop, but that winds up with her getting attacked and left for dead by two of his lackeys in an alleyway. And I think this was Britain's Got Talent week of that year. She gets a ruptured spleen, she gets her face punched in and everything, and winds up in hospital. When she gets out, though, she helps David, Gary and Sarah to rescue Bethany from Nathan from his tanning salon flat, and David decides to give the relationship with Shona a go. So, Shona then reveals to David that she's Clayton's mum.
Oh.
Brave move. I suppose she's got to at some point, but I think she was there in a hospital bed after getting beaten up by Nathan's cronies, and there was a scene where David kind of goes over and kisses her because he's starting to develop these feelings for her and everything. And then as soon as she gets out of hospital, she goes to Kylie's grave again. I think we're to believe that she's been regularly visiting here to say, sorry that my son killed you and all. And so David finds out the truth. He's like, I'm not having this. Get out of Weatherfield. And she does. So Sarah
she says, can I get that 400 quid off Gail if I'm going?
Yeah, can I just pick that up on the way? Sarah's the one that tracks her down because it turns out there's not enough evidence against Nathan when his case is coming to court. So Sarah's like, we need to have Shona back because she's got all the gossip on him. She's got all the dirt on Nathan. She knows things. So it works anyway. David asks Shona to stick around to help Bethany, and yeah.
Are they date?
I think they're dating now. Yeah, okay. By this time they are in a relationship. So David and Shona, absolutely. So towards the end of the year, Dane shows up. So this is Dane Hibbs, Shona's ex, because she wins £6,000 on a scratch card.
Yes,
as we all know the story about that. We all know the story about just every Coronation Street character getting a windfall at some point in their life. That's what
you've got to be in it to win it, though. If you expect to win money on the lottery, but you're not playing it, more for you.
I know there's lots of crime and murders and hospital visits and serial killers and everything, but there is the quite high probability of you getting a load of money just falling at your feet. So
you win some, you lose some.
Exactly. So Shona wins some, £6,000. Dane turns up wanting a piece of it. David's like, no, go away. This has nothing to do with you. And then Dane ends up locking himself in a car with Max and Lily, and he reveals to them that he's Clayton's dad.
I'm Clayton's dad.
Yeah. So Max, though, sensible child he was back then, tells Shona, you're not responsible for what your son did. And he gives her and David his blessing. So good for him. Good for him.
Oh.
So by the end of the year, Shona has moved into number 8 Coronation Street and has stayed there on and off ever since. David's house, the Platt's house.
Yes.
Yes.
I was just looking at while listening to what you were saying about winning the lottery and how extraordinary things happen all the time, and people do like to complain, including us, about how unrealistic a lot of these things are. But I was just thinking, imagine how boring the show would be if it was and then Shona wins £5 on the lottery, and then it turns out that her ex-boyfriend is the one who's dating Bethany, and he's actually all right to her, but they end up breaking up because they disagree about baked beans versus spaghetti hoops.
So it can't be too realistic, can it?
It can't be too realistic. And then she saw a dog. No, it's got to be extraordinary.
What happened to Shona in 2018?
Like what happened in 2018.
Troubling stuff.
When David is raped by Josh Tucker, and he completely breaks down. He avoids all forms of intimacy with Shona. Then he breaks up with her and says, I've fallen out of love with you.
It, as you would expect, it really knocks him for six, doesn't it? And he withdraws. He doesn't know how
to cope with it at all.
No.
Shona moves in with Roy and Carla, but she thinks he's suffering from post-traumatic stress about Kylie's death because she doesn't know about this secret that he's got. So she's confused about why he's treating her this way.
This is around this time when Emma showed up as well, wasn't it? Because David, he just can't cope. He doesn't know what to do. He's still trying to make sense of it himself, and he's pushes away all everyone who should be there to try and help him. If only they knew what happens. But he also ends up copping off with Emma, doesn't he, on her first appearance? I
can't remember too much about David's entire personal history, but it did strike me when I was reading back through this, because this isn't a history of David, it's a history of Shona, that suddenly
After
what happens with him...
Sorry, it's been a while.
With Josh, he does become... I think he becomes a bit more... He cheats on Shona quite a few times, or kisses. Like, even recently we've seen him.
Yeah.
And that didn't ever seem to... Is this, like, something I'm making up? Or was there, like, a really watershed moment here with his personality changing forever?
Yeah, maybe. Because he is a... Yeah, he's, you know...
Because I wouldn't have said before...
Copped off with or tried to cop off, or did cop off with Alina at some point.
Yes.
And obviously the kiss with Maria recently.
I wouldn't have said before then he was that kind of character, but he suddenly has... I don't think that was a conscious decision by Coronation Street, but it's one of those things, if you look back, it's kind of interesting. So he, as you said, when Emma Brooker comes into the show, I think the first episode is her sleeping with David Platt.
Yeah.
And she's a bit gutted about this because obviously she was going
David
out with him
Platt, yeah.
not that long ago. So this is the year when Aidan kills himself, and David then opens up after this to Shona about his mental health struggles and what's caused them, and then they reunite. She has to support him because he's been put on trial for attacking Gary Windass, probably beating him to within an inch of his life, knowing Gary. Shona tracks down Dec Lonsdale, who is another of Josh's victims, and tells Alia about what kind of guy he is, because Alia's dating him. Dec.
Alia is
Josh.
dating Josh.
I thought I didn't recognise Dec. David proposes to Shona, but she thinks that he's still traumatised and not doing it for the right reasons, so she turns him down.
Oh, shucks. So 2019 started off very nicely for Julia Goulding off show. This is when she married her fiance. She got spliced to a primary school teacher. So
is this why you like Julia so
solidarity
much? You feel like you might be in with a chance.
With Ben Silver.
If it all goes wrong with me and you and Julia and Ben, you think she's got a thing for teachers, primary school teachers?
Oh yeah.
We're a nice bunch.
We're lovely.
Very selfless.
We're lovely. So I love for what I've heard about their romance as well, because
not to be too
much like us as well, I have to say. Julia told Ben that she would marry him a week after their first date. And I remember us two at university getting together, and I don't know whether a week.
It was 2 weeks.
It was pretty soon when we kind of always knew that we were going to get married, didn't we?
Yep.
And we actually did. So it can happen. And it wasn't
when the people speak about the great romances of history, they always talk about me and you and Julia and Ben.
And Ben Silver, yeah, absolutely. Then they got married on the Manchester's Albert Hall as well. So very lovely. She said she always wanted to get married on a stage. So she did. I know. She's so wonderful. Anyway, so sorry, that's not Shona. That's just Julia starting off the year with a bit of a bang, and on the honeymoon night. So Dane dies of a drugs overdose in early 2019, and Shona ends up having to visit Clayton to tell him the news, to break the news.
That's his dad.
Yeah. And Clayton says,
Mum,
prison's not as all it's cracked up to me. I keep getting beaten up and everything. Getting much like Max recently.
Yep.
And he's said, please you got to help me. I need to get moved. Get me moved to an open prison or something. Or if you can't do that, I need you to be my drugs mule so that I can get on the bully's side. So he's saying, can you smuggle some drugs into the prison for me, and I'll use that to curry their favour. And she's like, no, I don't think so. And then Clayton gets beaten up again. Sucks.
He was right.
He was. So then we have Dane's funeral, and that was a great episode because this is the first time that we saw Macca, Clayton's half brother, for a little while, and they stage this escape, don't they?
Yeah, it was just like what happened with Terry Duckworth.
I was just thinking that. I love a good escapee criminal on Coronation Street, and Harvey more recently as well. But this was a proper I suppose it was more like Terry, wasn't it? Because when he was just off,
going off piece
Julia won't mind. She's not gonna. She knows this. Might do.
I wouldn't listen to it.
Why?
I'd be scared to listen to somebody talking.
So one of our listeners needs to do a Gemma Cox character profile.
Oh no!
I'll give you all the
I've heard
inside
enough
gossip
about myself to know that.
No, when Terry Duckworth got married to Lisa Horton, they were getting photographed, weren't they? And Vera was saying, "Oh, go on, take his
cuffs
cuffs off just for the photograph." And then he does a runner, and this is quite similar as well. They're all there around the grave, and they have a little scuffle, don't they, and a punch up, and Clayton ends up, running over the hills and far away, and then that ends up going to a really fun, is that the right word? I don't know. Memorable siege, hostagey kind of situation, because Clayton ends up getting into Shona's car one day whilst on the run, and it's like, right, you drive me to this derelict house that I know. And when she gets the chance, she rings the police to say, "Help! I'm being held hostage here by my son," and also he wants to give himself up, apparently. So the police come round to this house, surround it. Clayton then holds a knife to his own mum's throat and says, "Right, I want £10,000, otherwise I'm going to kill my mum." What a nasty piece of work this Clayton Hibbs is, honestly.
£10,000?
Yeah.
No. You £400 to leave Weatherfield, and that's my final offer.
So during this standoff, he admits to Shona as well, "Yeah, actually, I was the prison drug runner there, and Dane, my dad, had been bringing the drugs into prison for me." And ultimately, that's what led to Dane's death, because he was smuggling in a bag of drugs in an intimate location. The bag bursts inside of him, and that's what killed him. So really, Dane's death is all because of Clayton. So
it's one of the worst sentences I've ever heard in my life.
Not very pleasant. There was lots of, I think around this time, again similar to Vera and Terry, I suppose, Shona would try and see the good in Clayton, wouldn't she? And she hadn't given up on him, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll visit him," because that was what made the relationship between David and Shona so tricky in the early days, because he didn't want her fraternising with his his dead wife's killer, but she couldn't tear herself away from him. And I think I remember sometimes thinking, I wish that they would just cut ties with Clayton, because he's horrible and I didn't really enjoy the character. And it was this story here that really showed just what a nasty piece of work he was, not just to the viewers but to Shona as well. So anyway, Shona ends up stabbing Clayton so that she can escape. He returns to prison after his surgery, and then Shona says, "You know what, David, I will marry you. Well, no, will you marry me?" So she's a very modern girl and did the proposing herself. Do you remember the story about...
Yeah, of course I do.
Well, do you want to say this? Because you are a resident ghost fan
expert
on the podcast.
I prefer the word expert, actually. So yeah, Julia was on this morning, and she said this derelict house that they were in, people thought that it was haunted.
Yeah, the one that they filmed the siege in.
She said, "We were doing a take, and the sound operators had to stop the take because there was a lot of whispering over the booms. So then they said, 'Everyone please be quiet.' That kind of thing happened, and nobody had been talking at all. It was completely silent. All of the crew, everybody was watching the monitors, everyone was silent, and there was this whispering. And apparently the guy who played Clayton was quite scared.
Yeah.
It's Callum Harrison.
Yeah.
Exciting. When we went, there was a ghost. There was a ghost, do you remember?
When we went where?
When we went to go watch the episodes...
Oh yeah, last summer when we went to see Coronation. Well, there's
Coronation Street's haunted.
Coronation Street has got a long and proud history of
being
haunted filming locations. I mean, particularly the Key Street Studios was allegedly had a
there's
ghost.
There's an episode of Ghost. What's the word?
Haunted.
Most Haunted, and also the Inside Number 9 special, which is really good. I want to know what was, and this is complete whatever. What was there before the Coronation Street set that's in Media City was built on it? It was probably just like industrial stuff. I don't imagine any cool murders happened or anything. But
it was nice that the Corrie ghost followed them out on location anyway.
Do you think it was the Corrie ghost, or do you think it was a ghost that lived in the house and liked Coronation Street?
Oh, might have been.
Can you imagine how cool it would be if you're a ghost and you're all alone all the time, and you remember you can't watch Coronation Street
silly.
anymore because nobody will turn the telly on for you, and you're like, I wonder what's going on in Coronation Street, I'll never know. And then they came and filmed. No wonder they were blathering on all the way through. They were like, this is the most amazing, can you be quiet please, we're doing a take. Oh my god, I'm going to watch a take of Coronation Street, this is so cool.
I don't know who this Shona is though.
No, I don't know who these characters are. It's not as good as when Jack and Vera were in it though.
Anyway, back to what happened to Shona. So she's engaged to David at this point, but then she breaks off the engagement when she thinks that David is having an affair with the new salon worker, Natalie. Remember, she's the one with the butterfly tattoo that Nick had been working with to nick all that money, that £80,000 from Audrey. But David wasn't having it off with her. Natalie had just been flirting with him, and then she accuses him of stalking her after he rejected her, so it was all a bit awkward there. David ends up telling the truth about Natalie working with Nick to rob Audrey of the £80,000 in order to prove to Shona I'm not interested in her. I love you, Shona. That was the big Britain's Got Talent story of 2019, wasn't it? The whole reveal that Nick had stolen the money from Audrey. David finds out about it, and then they kind of collaborate together a little bit, don't they? And David ends up getting the one that gets sent to prison for the little stretch, doesn't it?
And it all culminates in Lorraine Kelly getting shot in the arse.
So that's how it began. That's how it began.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It starts off well.
Yeah, so David's in prison, and around this time, Max, who's being looked after by Shona, starts to see more of his grandma, Marion.
Oh, where's Marion now?
Marion Logan.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Where's Granny Marion now?
Same place as Granny Spellman, I think.
I bet Granny...
Just sitting back going, not getting involved.
I bet Nana Marion's sitting at home going, if that lad had been around me longer, he'd never be racist. Or maybe she's like, good. I'm glad, because I was going to teach him all those things. I'm glad that somebody else did.
Well, Marion was a teacher, wasn't she? I think I remember.
Yeah, but was she a racist teacher?
Probably not, no. They even recast her for this storyline and everything, didn't they? So Marion accuses Shona of being unfit to look after Max.
I mean, can anyone say she was wrong? Look what's happened now.
Shona's great.
Look what's happened now!
Oh, well. She tries to get custody of Max, but Max ultimately decides to stay at number 8 with Shona. And this is all around the time when Shona's starting to worry that she's letting Max get away with more than he should because she doesn't want to damage their relationship with another son. She's also kind of guilty still that her son stabbed his mum to death. So she's a little bit softly with him.
I mean, this is the sort of thing you read on the front of one of these women's magazines, you know. My son killed my husband's wife, and now I'm raising...
She could get a bit of cash from that, couldn't she?
But
I think this was... I don't know whether it was the beginnings that we mentioned so far tonight of Max being allowed to get away with things. Because he'd had his ADHD diagnosis by this point and everything. And he was a bit of a tearaway, but everyone was too scared to try and discipline him or tell him no or kind of try and teach him the better way of doing things.
We haven't done a character profile on Max, have we?
Yeah, we have done Max, yeah. Yeah, a while ago.
I remember that very well.
So, it was years ago. We probably should do it again at some point.
Well, yeah, because I want to... Because he ended up with the gun, or is that somebody else?
He did have
Callum's
a gun. He had
gun.
one of Callum's guns, yeah. So anyway, I just
So
thought it was
naughty.
kind of interesting link there. So this is the beginnings of Max realising he can get away with things, and now look what's happened. So really, is it fair to say that it's Shona's fault that
I'd say so.
Max has ended up where he is? Yeah.
She should be in prison, really.
Now remember Josh, the one that raped David, he ends up going to the same prison that David's held in. And
Shrewsbury, all the way at Shrewsbury.
It was filmed in Shrewsbury Prison, that's right. And there's a prison riot there, very exciting stuff. Josh ends up getting stabbed and then lies that David was the one who stabbed him.
You can't trust anybody
in an
in
act
prison.
of revenge there. Now, fortunately, and very conveniently for storyline purposes, Paul, Foreman Paul,
I know him,
is... kind of mates with the prison guard or something because he'd been in prison as well, and he's able to convince Josh to change his statement by saying, "Oh yeah, well I know people in this prison, and I'm going to have them make your life hell if you don't say that David didn't actually stab you." And that's thinking back,
Paul was quite rough.
He was a little rough, but I can't imagine Paul doing anything like that now. And I think possibly even at the time it was like, oh no, Josh isn't going to be listening to anything that Paul says. But
Paul,
anyway.
put your unicorn onesie back on and go home and watch some telly.
Yeah, go on. So David is let out of prison, and then on his return he decides...
You said just in time for the wedding, like they could have had it without him.
Well, he gets taken back by Nick, doesn't he? And he's like straight back to the street, into the bistro.
He literally runs through the street, doesn't he, or something? He's
Something
changing
like
in a car.
Something like that. And then he does a lovely speech about donuts and holes in part of his wedding vows.
Keep your eyes upon the donut and not upon the hole.
Exactly, classic.
Every hole.
So then David says that he's going to adopt Max, and Shona says that she's going to adopt Max and Lily as well. So then they're a proper family. But tragedy strikes in Christmas 2019.
Yeah.
This is when they having the Winter Wonderland in Brewery Lane, but also having another armed siege in Coronation Street, which are happening with increasing frequency in recent years, I have to say. And old Derek, who's an old loan shark victim of Gary, ends up climbing up a helter-skelter and shooting, and Shona gets shot in a box.
Shot in a box.
Shot in a box. Poor Shona. She has a cardiac arrest while she's being treated in hospital and falls into a coma. And that's the last we see of her in 2019. Things aren't looking too healthy for her. Of course, this is okay because it's just Julia Goulding getting ready for her first maternity leave.
She's okay.
Yeah. 2020, Gemma.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're about to tell us all about it.
I know, but I was just I saw something about Shrewsbury Prison recently. I think I've deleted it, but they're doing some filming soon, so they're closing. I wonder if it's anything to do with Corrie.
Possibly not, because
Possibly.
other places do.
Loads and loads of...
Happy Valley just had some scenes filmed at Shrewsbury Prison recently, didn't
If you go to Shrewsbury Prison, it will ruin anything to do with prisons in television.
Because you'll recognise it.
It's the same. And that's why, if you watch TV with prisons, you probably think to yourself, it's funny how all prisons look the same, isn't it? No, they don't. They're just
all filmed in the same place.
And what was that one that had... Was it Sean Bean recently? Time, was that one?
I don't know.
That was filmed there.
Oh,
they just filmed everything there. Okay, right.
A bunch of sellouts at Shrewsbury Prison.
And they also do ghost tours, by the way. 2020, Shona is improving in hospital.
In that she wakes up from her coma.
David's quite relieved. She has her breathing tube removed.
Oh, there was a really great scene there. Do you remember when David's like worried about Shona and thinks she's gonna
die?
She's gonna cop it, and then they detubify her, don't they? And he has like a little breakdown in the hospital corridor saying, "Oh, she's gonna be okay."
Oh no.
Lovely stuff. When those scenes were filmed and she was in hospital, she had to go onto Twitter to say that she'd had lip fillers done for the scenes because it looked like she had puffy lips. I think it was just like the angle that they shot at her, and she had to say, no, that was just my normal lips, although I did have a massive cold sore when I filmed those scenes, so good for you. But keeping on going.
A week later, she opens her eyes, but she's lost her memories. And she thinks Max is Clayton because she doesn't know time's passed and she doesn't even remember being on the street. And so she gets moved to a specialist unit in Leeds so that the actress who plays her can have a baby.
Baby Franklin. And a short maternity leave as well. One of the best covered up maternity leaves that we've seen in Coronation Street, because often they'll just shove the character away and say visiting sick mum and then come back, any time between 6 to 12 months later. But even when Shona was away from the programme, she still made kind of semi-ish mini regular appearances, because I think they filmed a couple of scenes before she went of like her in the hospital in Leeds and everything. So it was very smoothly done.
David carries on visiting Shona in Leeds, but she doesn't know who the hell he is and she doesn't want to see him. She wants to see Clayton. And then she asks for a divorce. And so David gets depressed and he tries to take Alina to bed. And she says, no, you're married with children, she says.
Yes, Alina, I think she changes her morals somewhat before Tyrone comes around.
I don't want to sleep with you because you have children and a wife. And then you're like, Alina, you know you're going to shag Tyrone there. Okay, I don't want to be mean, but I think David Platt is not as beautiful as Tyrone. Tyrone is just so handsome, I can't resist him. Anyway,
Yeah, poor Shona. She just like she's
doesn't know what's
battling
going on.
through 2020. Like this guy who says that he's my husband, and you know, there's evidence and there's photographs and everything that I shared my life with him, but I've just got no memory of who
How
he
creepy
is.
would it be?
I know.
I've read real life stories where this happens, where you wake up and you're like, I don't know who you are.
It's funny because
it
also does seem like massively soapy and unrealistic, doesn't it? I think at the time when we were watching it, I was thinking, you don't really get amnesia in real life, do you? You don't forget things like this.
Well, apparently you do.
Like, I still can't. I need to meet somebody that this has happened to because I think it's made up.
Well, I'm an expert in psychology because I did an A-level in it.
You did do an A-level in psychology.
And my favourite part of it was abnormal psychology, and we learned a lot about memories and people that have memory disorders. It's like, honestly, it's one of the scariest things to me.
Your brain is a funny old thing, isn't it?
Well, there's this really tragic story about a guy who had no way to store memories in his long-term memory. So he only had memories of up to whatever. I think he had some kind of virus. Oh. And I think it's actually a cold sore virus, so watch out.
Oh, yes.
Watch out. So anyway,
it's a combination of the two, shut in a box and the cold sore.
He could never transfer memories to his long-term memory, so he only had short-term memory, and that's like 2 to 3 minutes long. So he had a diary he kept in his room, and it's just full of stuff like, I've just woken up for the first time. I don't remember being conscious, and somebody's written in here, and this is all wrong, and then that's been crossed out, and then it's like I'm awake. I can imagine. I have never been awake before, but somebody's been writing in here all these things that aren't true.
I mean, they Coronation Street did work with charities and things went to make this story. Not completely unrealistic.
It can't be completely 100% realistic because if real life was that much fun, we wouldn't have fiction, would we?
Very true.
How about
that? Amnesia is such a commonly used plot device in like anime and video games
anymore.
And things.
I think it used to be more. It's kind of like quicksand.
Yeah.
No, it used to be more of a problem back in the day, but now I think we've moved on, haven't we? But I approve of it in this storyline because it has changed Shona into somebody I think is quite interesting. So anyway, she's struggling with her memories, and she gets a visit with Clayton. Is he in prison?
Yeah, he's in prison. So
he's
been sent down for 15 years.
So she goes in there and she doesn't even recognise him anymore because she still thinks he's a child. And Clayton tries to take advantage of the fact that she's vulnerable because she can't remember. And he starts telling her that David was drunk and violent. He's trying to get her to bring stuff in, smuggle stuff in for him. And she has a caseworker who's looking after her. And this caseworker intervenes, and then Clayton insults them, and Shona has to leave, and she's distraught because it's just... Imagine if you lost your memory, but you were sure of one thing, that you loved your son and you want to see him again, and then even that's wrong. How awful. So she goes... Sarah manages to convince Shona to come to Coronation Street with her caseworker as a supervised visit to see if she'll have any. And she is thrown because she remembers where the tea bags are kept. And I think at the time I remember watching this going, who would have ever guessed that the tea bags were in a tin above the kettle?
I think it's just like an innate sense that all Brits have, isn't it?
Everyone knows.
If you go into a house, you can just...
It's like...
You'd sense the tea.
What's it called? It's dowsing.
Yeah.
We have like our fingers like dowsing works for tea bags. Like tingles as you get closer and closer. So David suggests to Roy that Shona should stay with him. So Roy and Shona agree with that, and so that she moves in there. And David is noticing that her personality is completely changed, and she's got no filter on anything she says. And she is trying to get back to her old life, so she tries to seduce David, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, she's being told, he's your husband, you love him, and she kind of tries to kickstart it by saying, well, come to bed then. And he's like, no, I can't, because with the way that David kind of saw her, she'd been almost infantilized a little bit, hadn't she? She's like massively regressed in terms of maturity. Like you said, she had no filter, and this was a brand new Shona that we were seeing. And
it would be creepy and weird. It'd be like sleeping with somebody who's taking over your wife's body.
Yeah, she didn't know what she was doing or saying,
very
and as
vulnerable.
much as David wanted things to be able to go back to how they could be, he knew that it couldn't happen quite as quickly as that.
No.
This was all because this was in like mid 2020 as well, and in the middle of COVID.
But we can't have sex with each other. It's COVID.
I know. They couldn't have very many intimate or close scenes together. And wasn't there a scene where Shona was leaning out the window over the cafe and David was on the street, and there were a few like nice moments like that. But
David's struggling with this personality change, and so the sinkhole appears. The saga.
Oh
of
yes,
the sinkhole.
that's when that happened as well. Yeah.
So they have to go to Chariot Square, and so they have a good time there. And then Shona says, "Can we please go back to number 8? I want to move in with you. And I don't want you to sell the house to Ray Crosby," which is...
Yeah, Ray was trying to buy up all the properties on that side of the street at the time, but David tries to refuse by saying...
He does refuse.
Yeah, he says, "I'm not selling because I want to
move in with Shona."
have my family back
I think
together again.
it was also the idea that anything could disrupt her getting her memory back, so they don't want to move away because then she wouldn't have anything familiar to hook.
Yeah, he was just
onto.
Desperately hoping that
She
the
would just
old
snap
Shona
back.
would come and all the memories would... And I don't know where we even are with that at the moment.
I know.
Like, her
She's
personality
enigma,
has
isn't she?
definitely mellowed out since then. But
Yeah.
I don't remember...
I don't think she's back.
how much she remembers of their first couple of years together.
It's really fascinating, honestly. I would love to explore Shona's character a bit more. But she's very eccentric, isn't she? New Shona is sometimes pushes the believability of this condition that she's got. But I think this is great. I know lots of people, their mileage may vary on this, but I'm full 100% behind eccentric Shona. So she invites a bunch of strangers to Audrey's 80th birthday party. There's a guy who's really arrogant and she cuts his top knot off.
Oh yeah, it's like a model, wasn't it? That came
It's
to
called
this.
Tarquin or something.
No, Hugo. He was
okay.
called.
Right,
yeah,
sorry,
he
Tarquins.
comes to the
Have we
trim
got
up north.
Have we got any Tarquins listening or any Hugos? And she also blurts out to Aaron about the fact that David had been raped, which is not appropriate. And she also, very poor, very bad judgment, she steals Ray's keys and she goes in the bistro with Simon and gets drunk.
Was that the poor judgment that Simon
Hanging
was
out
her
with Simon.
choice of drinking buddy there?
I don't know why she's hanging out with Simon.
I think because she was almost acting like a teenager again, wasn't
Yeah.
it? It was almost like that they were a similar age, and
Right.
she just wanted to have fun, and I
everyone
guess
else is
maybe
a
he
boring
did
old
as well.
fart.
You know, party animal Simon Barlow.
Maybe. I mean, I can't remember, but if I had been locked in the bistro with Simon, I think I would turn to drink quite early on.
Rude.
Ray finds out about this and he says to David, "Unless you drop your opposition to this development, I'm going to take the footage of her underage drinking session and break in." Was it underage? I can't remember.
She wasn't underage.
No, Simon.
I don't know.
I don't think they count mental age, otherwise half the country would be allowed to drink. So I'm going to take this footage to the police and get her in trouble. So David tells Shona, "This is too much for me. This marriage is not working." But then he goes back on it and they have a really nice reenactment of the wedding.
Oh yeah, that was a Christmas Day.
At Christmas
2020,
Day,
wasn't it?
and this was we had in the factory with streamers and Lily and Max were there,
like fairy lights and everything. Yeah, and it's just the four of them. They reenact with the
white creepy paper.
With the quote of the donut quote and everything. It was lovely.
Yeah, it was.
And then they go outside and it starts snowing again. And
yeah, this followed Daisy and flirting with David and annoying Shona.
Oh yeah, I think that's one of the things that spurred them on to go and redo this wedding.
What I was saying before
Lovely.
about David like cheating on her a lot. I think a lot of it was also this kind of thing, like with that the butterfly girl, what's her name, Natalie, and Daisy flirting with David. I'm not sure how much he reciprocated, but
I don't think he particularly did that much.
No.
I remember.
wouldn't ever say David's a flirty guy.
No, not really.
Because even if you think about him and Maria, he's such a sarcastic and childish kind of guy that even with hanging around a beautiful woman for so long, he just devolves into like a brother sister kind of snipey. relationship, which is fun.
He doesn't sound to strike me as one of these guys that goes out on the pool or anything. I'm trying to remember, like, when he first got together with Kylie, it was a case of he went on holiday and then came back with her, didn't he? He got to know Shona because she went up to him in that bar. So yeah, I think he's just like very chill
cool and laid back.
And happy with his own company, I suppose. Yeah. And if some lovely lady comes up to him, then
quite good
why
luck
not?
With that, hasn't he? Over the years,
he does, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the end of 2020.
David Platt,
for
never
Shona.
A cold bed.
No, exactly. 2021. From this point onwards, we start to see a lot less Shona, but also a lot more Shona, because 2022 she was the number one featured character in the whole year, but she's just not seemed like she's had an awful lot to do. She's always in it because she's always in Roy's
looking for a story.
But the whole of the Platt saga has kind of petered out a little bit in the past few years, and it seems like maybe with all this Max stuff recently it's starting to come back. But yeah, it's been so funny having so little Platts after many years of wall-to-wall Plattiness.
Well, would you say that it's a fair assessment that Shona sort of joining the family was kind of the beginning of the decline of the Platts as a very central family?
In a way,
it's not because of her character, but you can definitely say, there was a time where Platt, it was all Platt all the time. They were the peak family. They were, and it was interesting because they weren't what you would call the traditional main family of the street, which is more like the Barlows.
Yeah. Well, it was in like 2017, I think, that Kate Oates, the producer, then brought in Daniel Osborne and brought Peter Barlow back, I think. And
Adam? I can't remember.
Maybe it was Adam that came back and Peter was already there. I can't remember. But anyway, it was that was what pushed the Barlows back into being the main family of the street, and the Barlows and the Platts then took a bit of a back seat, and we haven't seen as much of them since. I mean, we did have all the stuff with the rape and everything, but yeah, in the last couple of years they've just not had as much to do, which means we've not seen as much.
Well,
Shona.
it's definitely it was definitely a sort of downward, a graph where. Yeah, they weren't having the big central story like the Callum drug stuff. That was their biggest story in modern times.
Yeah,
and then it kind of declined a bit more, and it's got to the stage where, for the past couple of years, they haven't really been in it that much.
No, but I think now that Max is old enough to have his own storylines, we're starting to see a bit of an upturn.
I think that's true.
And I think Lily is, I don't know how old she is now, 10,
25.
Also. What? So I think that once she starts getting stories, but even that might not be for another 3 or 4 years, possibly.
I really quite like Lily.
Maybe we'll start to see more of them then, but I hope we get to see them more. But anyway, let's get to the end. No, it's fine. I'm just warning everybody that we're going to probably be rushing quite quickly through the next few years. There was a really interesting episode midway through 2021 that starts off with Shona running into the lounge of number 8, and it's supposed to be in the middle of the night or very, very early in the morning. She's saying, I've hit someone in the car. And I remember watching the episode going, have we missed something? What's going on?
Did we not watch the last episode?
Yeah, exactly. But it was just a
really
different way to start throwing you straight into the drama. And it all tied into this residence parking scheme story that had been playing out for a few weeks beforehand. And when Inkerman Street got residence parking. Permits. So then everyone started parking on Coronation Street, and they were all fighting for spaces, even though they don't usually have cars unless they need them. The characters.
Who would have thought that Weatherfield has been trialling the 15-minute city concept for the past 61 years?
So what had happened was Shona had ended up going out in the middle of the night, reversing the car to try and move it to a prime spot, and ends up hitting Todd. And that's who and then
not just
drives off again.
She's done 3 bad things here, hasn't she?
She hits Todd.
Yeah.
She wasn't actually allowed to drive because since her accident and everything and head trauma and everything, it kind of means you're not allowed to drive anymore. And then she drove off again without it. Tried to cover it up and everything.
Naughty.
David says, well, look, I can't have you going to prison or anything for this, so tries to hide the car, but then when it's found, he's arrested for perverting the course of justice.
So he did 3 wrong things.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Because he was allowed to drive, but he wasn't allowed to hit Todd, He wasn't allowed to drive off, and he wasn't allowed to hide the car.
No, he wasn't. Sarah has a go...
And lie about it. So that's
Sarah has to have a go at Todd to say, look, can you just drop the charges or whatever, so or change your statement or whatever. So Todd gives a false statement that exonerates
He's like, I thought
David.
I was run over by a car, but it turns out it was just a really bad dream.
I can't remember what it was that he said, but thanks to Sarah, David gets away with that one.
It was just a dog that looked at me funny.
Shona, by the end of 2021, starts to worry that Max is getting a bit out of control.
No.
And David's turning a blind eye to it.
It'll be fine.
And then also, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of Shona this year, but we did have one of Shona's best ever moments when she, during the Coronation Street saga, goes down into the sewers to help rescue Jenny. And I love that they were the one that picked Shona for that. I mean, Abby's usually the go-to hero on Coronation Street, isn't she?
She was trying to shoot up a child.
Shona is, because she didn't have a filter, she doesn't always think before she acts. In many ways, she was impulsive. That's it. She was perfect for saying, "Well, I'm going down there to go and help fish her out again." Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was brilliant because I love that episode, and I love that they involved Shona.
Great performance, great stunt work, and also that really sad bit where Jenny's screaming for Johnny, who's just drowned, and Shona's there trying to comfort her,
giving her a hug.
I would actually. I know Johnny basically is like he's never existed now on Coronation Street, but I would kind of really like a revisit. A moment, maybe this Halloween, where they just kind of exchange a look like they both remember. Because that was really traumatic, and now they're bonded forever because that was a big thing to go through, but it's just one of many. And
what a brilliant scene as well, characters. With all the practical effects and everything that they employed to do the below the streets of Weatherfield. Oh, it was just brilliant. Loved it. So anyway, that's all I've got for Shona for 2021, and that takes us into last year, Gemma.
Well, the most important thing that happened was that she got a job at the cabin, which she's not bothered to go to.
I've got a feeling since doing these notes that it was only supposed to be a temporary job at the cabin while Brian and Kathy are in Cornwall.
Well, they go away on holiday, and Shona gets taken out of the cabin, and she ingratiates herself to Rita because there's this annoying delivery man who always talks for ages to Rita, and she tells him he's boring, and
Shona does, yeah.
Shona and
Rita's like, oh, thanks so much. I've been listening to this guy's stories for the best part of 25 years, so cheers for getting rid of him for me.
Poor bloke. What's he going to do now? So Shona tries to get Rita and Audrey to make up again because they fall out when Audrey drives into Rita's car because she's got cataracts. But it doesn't work because Audrey can see right through her even though she can't actually see her in person.
Yes.
Then there's a fight between Max and some bullies, and Shona intervenes and she gets bopped on the nose.
Gets bloodied nose, doesn't she?
She's still worried about Audrey, so she keeps an eye on her when she starts becoming a drunk.
This is basically what they use Shona for in 22,
and then she
don't
just
they?
Hangs
just hanging around
in the
Audrey and Rita for a bit, yeah.
My biggest... If you say Shona to me, immediately in my mind, the image is conjured of Shona with an apron on and a tea towel in her hand, wiping something and watching other people doing things, which, it's fair enough. There's plenty of...
But also making sarky comments about them.
There's plenty of characters in Coronation Street over the years who've been a massive part of the show for a long, long time, who actually don't really have that many big storylines of their own, and just kind of watching other people. Think of Norris, for example. He's a good example of that kind of character where he's had some fairly big stories, but on the whole, he was just a almost reader, watcher insert.
I have a riddle for you.
Go on, then.
What is the relationship between Shona and Norris?
I don't know.
In terms of name.
What? No, I don't know.
Shona's maiden name. Ramsey.
Oh, Ramsey's brother.
Ramsey is Norris's brother, yeah.
Wow.
7 degrees of separation or something.
Is that how it works?
I don't know.
And how do they know Kevin Bacon again?
I don't. So anyway, that's basically it.
2023, she's gone off to take Lily to a football training camp.
And now she's back. Hooray.
Hooray.
Yeah, Julia Goulding went off on maternity leave again. And I think towards the tail end of last year, she gave birth to her second child, her daughter, Emmeline. And now she's back again. So I really hope that this is going to be the year that they throw something massive at Julia Goulding.
She's going to be quite busy with a baby, I would say. She probably would like to
I
take
know,
a year.
I know, especially with a primary school teacher husband, because I don't know.
How would you cope with?
If he's a superhuman, then maybe he's got time to look after a baby as well. But I don't know. I don't know how you do it, Ben.
Look after
honestly,
my baby.
I don't know. So yeah, that's it for Shona really, and I just think that she's this untapped potential. Not that she's the 98th most featured character in Coronation Street ever, but she hasn't had that one big, long storyline.
She could definitely do it.
She could absolutely handle, and if for anybody that doesn't realise it already, prove what an amazing actress Julia Goulding is. What a charming, charismatic, witty. She's got brilliant comedic timing. She can do the drama amazingly. So I think that just giving her, one of the A storylines for the year is just what she needs.
So what you're telling me is that you are very excited about the potential for us to give Julia Goulding Weatherfield Waterworks Award for 2023.
That's the thing. That is the only thing.
Because
what happens to the leading ladies of Coronation Street?
If you're an actress on Coronation Street and you get given a big story, you're going to be dehydrated.
I know, that's the thing. They did it to Bethany, they did it to Emma, they did it to Abby, they did it to Rana. Toya last year. And so far, Shona has avoided that, hasn't she? Having the tragedy upon tragedy thrown at her. And I don't know what the story would be, but I want her to have the big A story of the year without them ruining the character by just giving her all this, grief porn, basically. I don't know what the story would be, but I just know that she'd be able to cope with it because she's just so absolutely brilliant. And it would also mean that David gets brought back into the show more, because he's definitely been on the sidelines a little bit recently. Even just recent stuff we've seen with Max has helped remind the viewers, hopefully, what an amazing talent Jack P. Shepherd is. So I just want this year to be the year of the Platts again.
I'm definitely enjoying the right-wing storyline with Max and David, and it's good that Jack P. Shepherd's getting a meteor role after a few years of kind of being a background character in a sense. But I will say my least favourite David is Dad David.
I know.
And it's a good idea for them to have done this with David, but I don't feel like we're getting I don't feel like we're getting enough of the recognition of the fact that David's completely out of his depth. I know that it kind of goes without saying in a way, but it does feel a bit like David's just been so full of bravado and confidence and sarcasm and laughing at everybody for all these years, and now he's being proven, that he actually doesn't know what he's doing either, and the consequences for that are actually a lot worse than he could ever have imagined. And I don't think there's been a real proper recognition. I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit harsher, but I am also looking forward to this storyline being over, so we can kind of get back to sarcastic, dark David, who is really funny, and also the relationship between Shona and David. I've enjoyed the comedic side of that coming out over the past year or so.
Like with Dev, who's really flourished now that Adi and Asha have come of age and grown up, and he can be in embarrassing dad mode. David and Shona being embarrassing parents to Max has been a joy to watch in this last year, especially like when he was dating Lauren, you remember, towards the end of last year.
Yes, and I love Lauren.
Yeah, I love Lauren. So
I think, and we've also had the pleasure of seeing Julia perform, because we watched the scene with her with Dee Dee, and it was Max and David coming out. I don't even think that scene got used.
No, that didn't. We've seen an unaired scene.
But watching her perform, I can see why she's so
vivacious. She's so full of energy.
She just buoyed everybody up. She was funny. She made jokes. She was like straight on it when it was time to perform. And that was when they were being directed by
Reece Dinsdale.
Yeah, he was
Joe McIntyre.
So Jack P. Shepherd had worked with this director when he was an actor on the show, so that was a really interesting dynamic as well.
That was funny.
She's just a joy. I think the character of Shona she's grown on me year and year and year.
Shona's grown her.
Yeah, all right.
I think
I know
hopefully
that,
there are still year on year to come as well, because she's now been in the show about as long as Kylie had been in it, or maybe it's even more now, and obviously the number of episodes is overtaken as well. So when you think back to David's relationships, and there were long periods of time when David and Kylie had split up.
Yeah.
So actually Shona is David's longest relationship, and
I still don't like. I love them together as a comedy couple, but I still just do not understand them as a couple.
Oh, I just
don't think there's anything between them.
Oh, I don't get it. I think they gel perfectly, because they're both so. It's the wit, it's the humour. I think that they're just they seem so relaxed in each other's presence.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but
and I think that's also a Julia Goulding and Jack P. Shepherd thing.
I feel like they skipped all the way to that, and there was no. Not that I want this kind of stuff or care about this, but it felt like there's some passion missing. There's like that, the romance and the gooey eyes and the snogging
But not all relationships. I think they're
not all relationships are like that. But I feel like they feel like you and me. Like we but we get on really well and stuff.
Yeah. They come across as great mates, don't they?
What a passionate romance that is. I love that Conversation Street podcast, because they're always stopping to have a snog. You know what I mean? It just feels like, they're like a family to each other.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean.
And it's not quite the same as David and Maria's relationship, which feels very much like a sibling relationship.
Mm. But
up until he tried to kiss her.
I think that even though we maybe don't have that side for them,
but we
do see so much of them as a couple compared to some others.
A partnership.
They do. They're a really great double act, and Coronation Street double acts are not as easy to come by these days as they used to be.
They're very hard to manufacture.
But David and Shona, you can't. Yeah. You can't manufacture these things like, Thelma Barlow and Peter, I can't remember. Yeah, Peter Baldwin, who played Derek and Mavis. They were perfect together, weren't they? And Thelma and
I see what you mean.
And Thingy and what's that?
Bloody Blue and Bloody Blah.
Barbara Knox, forgot her name. You just can't manufacture these things, but with those two, they just absolutely struck gold, and they work so
There's
perfectly
definitely chemistry
together.
Between them, but I don't think it's sexual.
Maybe not. But I don't care. But yeah, I think that unlike some other characters, like, say, Sarah Louise and Adam, or Gary and Maria, it feels like with those characters, they just kind of throw them in when they want to have a story, and then they disappear and we don't see them again.
Well, I buy Maria and Gary a lot more.
I do a little bit more now. Yeah, they have
time into those characters.
Still not
over
convinced.
The past couple of years.
Not convinced about Sarah Louise and Adam, but. No, I think that because of the family dynamic and, Gail and Audrey and everyone still being around, we've seen much more of David and Shona just at home doing home things.
You never see it. You rarely see Adam and Sarah at home. They're always in the pub or in the factory.
And I think it's partly to do with the fact that they live on Coronation Street, whereas Sarah and Adam are in one of the Victoria Court flats and everything.
I don't get why that makes a difference, because they've all got sets.
Yeah. I just think the home life of Shona and David is a real asset to them. But
the same way like Tyrone and Fizz, you see a lot more of them in their house together with each other.
And that's what Coronation Street should be about.
Yeah.
Home people at
Kitchen
home
sink
doing
drama.
Exactly, it is. It's not about let's see them all how they're doing at
Business
the bistro
deal.
or whatever. I like seeing these characters at home, but I mean, as much as I complain about them seemingly underusing Shona sometimes, in my opinion, I would like to think that there's still plenty more years of Shona to come.
Oh, I will watch her forever.
She's already, overtaken Paula Lane, I believe, like I said, and Julia Goulding has said, she's implied that she wants to stay on the show for a long time. I don't know whether
I'm going to allow it.
I don't know. Who knows? I don't know that that's still the case now that she's had her kids, but I certainly hope so. She said in 2019, we recently celebrated 40 years of Audrey and Sue Nichols, who plays her. How amazing is that? I'd love to be here for another 40 years. Yes, please. I think that would be amazing. But, who knows whether that's still the case. But I think that because Julia is such a fan of Coronation Street.
Oh,
she's
so
not
great.
just in the show as a stepping stone to get to somewhere else, or as, you know, a little temporary job or anything. I honestly believe that this is like her home and she wants to be there and she wants to stay there forever. And although there are definitely some characters on Coronation Street, naming no names, who also feel like they're going to stay there forever, but they've kind of
overstayed their welcome.
Yes, that's a nice way of putting it. I don't think that Shona could, so I could absolutely still see her there in 40 years, being a 78-year-old woman tottering around.
We don't know anything about anyone's plans, and you can't. I think it would be silly to try and make a long-term plan for your career if you're a Coronation Street actor, knowing what the future may hold for you. But I can definitely see David and Shona, and you know, they always throw Jack and Vera, the new Jack and Vera, blah blah blah, at everybody who's a couple who's been in the show for any length of time. I'm not saying that they're a Jack and Vera, but they feel very much like one of those couples that could be an iconic Coronation Street couple.
So just don't split them up. And there's always the temptation, isn't there? Like they did with Kevin and Sally back in the day. Say, who's a really popular couple? Let's split them up.
And the sad thing about that is that if they hadn't split those two up, then they could, you know, Kevin and Sally could have been an iconic Coronation Street couple.
They still are.
They're not because they weren't together for long enough.
They were together for...
I'm going to say
11,
that Sally's
years.
Personality changed since she was with Kevin, to the degree that it's almost like a completely different character.
Yeah,
she was never a silly, airheaded snob.
No, she wasn't. But I mean, we do now have Sally and Tim, who lots of people would say is even more enjoyable to watch. But honestly, don't split up David and Shona just for, you know, the short-term thrill of something that's, you know, going to be on the front cover of the TV guide, but then that ruins the relationship.
They're writing this down at Coronation Street.
When she came back earlier this week and she was like, "Oh, David, I'm leaving you," I wasn't nervous that she actually was going to, because I don't think that Coronation Street would be that stupid to split them up.
And the sad fact of the matter is, if they did split up, then I think Shona would struggle to find a place in the show that made logical sense for her.
Yeah, she doesn't have her roots. She doesn't have her links.
Her roots are the Platt family, and if she's been severed from that, then the only other person she's got is Roy.
Yeah, when I spoke to Amanda Barry on the podcast a couple of years ago, she talked about getting your links with as many characters on the show as possible. Yes. So you if one of those links goes, you've still got lots of others. And you're right, I think that there's not very much still anchoring Shona to the street without the Platts. Now, luckily, the Platts is a massive dynasty and they're not going to be going anywhere soon unless they have a family affair style boating disaster. But it is a bit of a worry. But you're right, she does have a really nice relationship with Roy.
And she still
but
would have
Nina's
her job.
kind of taken that role,
yeah, she has a little
unfortunately.
Yeah.
What do you think about...
And I'm just going to also wonder whether Shona's taking the place that Maria's had in David's life as his kind of sniping partner.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
I was just going to talking about Clayton, because this guy was sent down to prison. So when was this? Like 4 or 5 years ago now? Maybe it's not that long. He was sentenced to 15, and I know he did a bit of escaping and everything, so maybe he's not going to be getting out for good behaviour or however that works. I don't know whether that's true or not. Do you think that Clayton will come back at some point? Is he going to do a bit? Is he going to be a Jim McDonald, Terry Duckworth kind of character that's going to be the bad penny? And
I'm not going to say that I'd look forward to that.
I'm not a mega fan of Clayton, but I don't. And when he was in it a lot, I was like, I'm not too fussed about him. But I think if we were to come back to Coronation Street in, let's say, 10 years' time, and then Clayton turns up, I'd be like, whoa, what's going to happen here? Because there's absolutely an archetypical soap character of the bad son that the mum can't help but love.
I know, but I like comedy Shona. I don't like drama Shona.
I think that...
But she does... Julia Goulding
She does both very, very well.
And I don't really know how I would feel... How could they write... I mean, Shona, when she was first struggling after she came out of her coma with her memory loss and things, that wasn't comedic at all, obviously. But she kind of transitioned into it being a sort of a more whimsical experience to watch. since then, but she hasn't seen Clayton since then.
No.
So would there be any comedy in the way she would react to him? And would they even ever dare to go that way?
I don't know.
I'm just trying to think of a way that Clayton could come back and I would like it, because I think I love how good Shona, how funny Shona is.
It depends what they did
and
with... Depends what they wanted to do with Clayton, because Terry wasn't funny when he came back. If they could make him, and maybe people would say, "Oh, they're just copying the Terry Duckworth," but if they were to make Clayton come back and he was just the absolute worst, and every time you think he can't sink any lower, he does, and that was what made Terry so compelling, wasn't it? Every time Vera was saying, "Oh, I still love him, he'll be okay," and then he sells his son, and then next time, he bails on his. Was it kidney transplant that he was going to have or something, and leaving Vera on a deathbed, and I don't know. I just think that could be good, and I didn't love it, Clayton particularly, but 10 years time, 10 years more acting for whatever it is, the guy who plays Clayton, maybe they could do something there. Well, I don't know.
Maybe he's too scared to come back to Coronation Street because he was haunted by a ghost.
What Julia has said in an interview about the potential Clayton return is, I'd like to. Obviously, we saw a little bit of him when she came back and his mask slipped fairly quickly. I'm not sure how much repair can be done to that relationship, but it'd be nice to see him back. But maybe not Shona trying again and again and again. It'd be nice to see him back if it was for a real reason, and maybe for a good stint as well.
Good point. Yeah, for longer. And that makes sense with what you were saying about Terry Duckworth, because Terry Duckworth had quite long returns, didn't he? And he definitely had a proper story. It wasn't just like, "Hi, Mom, I'm going to kidnap you."
It was more than a couple of days, but I wouldn't say that it was...
Well, he had schemes, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
All right, I don't remember.
No, it doesn't matter. But the potential is there anyway, so... What more is there that we can say?
I feel like I could talk about
Shona?
This character for ages, but I do feel like we kind of need to stop at some point.
Yeah, because
I just love her, and it will just turn into gushing.
Yeah, she's just so sparky and fun and whimsical.
She is very. She brings a lot of energy to the screen. There's a few characters like that.
Such great timing. It is. She's there are some characters that when they step on the screen, the energy just goes. And it's like, oh, fine, this is a bit...
Here we go.
This is a bit heavy. But she can, like Sally Carman, I'm going to say, Julia Goulding can inject something into a scene that just raises it right up. And I really hope that she's here in Coronation Street for a long, long time to come. I was wondering... Sorry, I know that sounded like an ending thing, but with Clayton...
Yes...
There's definitely potential in him coming back and interacting with Max, isn't there?
How do you feel that would go? Would it be an antagonistic?
Yeah. He's not going to team up with his mum's killer.
Do they recognise each other as fellow crims?
I think that Max's knowledge of Clayton being the one that killed his mum, it would be a bit too much to resist. Although
adds something, doesn't it?
I can't remember whether Max even knows what Clayton looks like.
Could they accidentally be friends?
Exactly. I'm wondering that. Like if Max has certainly got his dark side, but he's also they want to redeem him. But if they keep Max with a bit of a dodgy side to him, Clayton could purposefully, I guess, possibly enlist him into some kind of dodgy dealings, and then he realises who he's getting into bed with.
How about Clayton's in prison, in the same prison as Max. Because Max isn't actually in normal prison, is he?
No, but Clayton will be now when he's old enough to be.
Let's just say they're both in the same prison. And let's just say Max has come out and he's done naughty things and gone back in again. Clayton recognises Max. Max doesn't know who he is, and Max is being picked on again, and Clayton takes him under his wing. And then before he realises that this guy murdered his mum, he's now indebted in a very emotional way, and also in a prison style tit for tat kind of a way to this guy, and his mixed up emotions, because he's like, I hate you, but you've helped me and you knew who I was. Yeah. And
I think there is definitely some mileage there, honestly.
There is, isn't there?
Yeah. Do you see, sort of moving away again to a different topic, are you happy with Shona staying at Roy's? Do you think that that's a kind of a suitable...
Oh, staying working. Though.
Staying working at Roy's.
Yeah, I think she's...
Because although Nina has come in and kind of almost taken the role of the Saki...
barn
butterer, I think that I can't see anywhere else that Shona would be better. I certainly don't see her there at the factory. I don't think that she's Rover's barmaid potential either. I think that, I think she's just a bit more down to earth, isn't she, than some buxom wench.
She's not she's more like a potman or a cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, she can you imagine her turning up at the bar at the Rovers with her rips in her jeans?
No.
What would
casual.
Annie Walker say?
It's too casual, and she'd also
I love her ripped
insult
jeans.
people.
Yeah, she would.
Yeah.
So I think that she could stay there, and I wonder because how long is Roy going to stay the proprietor of Roy's Rolls? Did he? When he went off to Peru last year, did he leave it to Nina?
Yeah.
But did he take it back again when he came back after about 3 weeks?
One of these things
remember.
where I think sometimes Coronation Street doesn't like to tie up things so they don't have to because they can use it in the future if they want to.
See, I personally think that Shona feels like she belongs, long term at Roy's a lot more than Nina does. And I don't know what I see for Nina in the future, but I mean, she's a fashion designer, isn't she? And
allegedly.
It feels like that helping out at Roy's Rolls is just like a temporary stopgap with her. It doesn't feel like that's where she needs to stay forever, but I could certainly see Shona doing it, and maybe there could be a story when Roy decides that it's time to bequeath his beloved Roy's Rolls to someone, and is it Shona or is it Nina, and there's a bit of a fight going on there. But Coronation Street does quite a lot recently have a problem with change, and they like to keep things the same, like keep the cabin there, keep Deb's shop there, keep the salon open again, keep the factory exactly the same. But once Roy, once Roy retires, is it still going to be
retire.
Roy's Rolls? It doesn't need to be.
What would it be if it was Shona's then? Shona's what?
I don't know. I haven't had a
Shona's
chance
sausages.
to think about that. No, but I think that maybe it could do with a refresh. Not while Roy's there, but afterwards. And having Shona take it over and Shonify it, I think that could be a nice little new era. Because it used to be Jim's Cafe before Roy's Rolls for a long time. Corrie needs to make some changes, and I think if Nina took the factory, the cafe on after Roy, she'd probably keep it as Roy's Rolls and kind of in his memory because it's a family thing. And I think that Shona would be better to refresh it and give it the facelift it needs. So,
interesting.
I don't know.
I can see it the other way round. Honestly, I can see Shona.
Can you?
Yeah, the opposite to what you said.
Why?
Shona keeping it the same, and Nina changing it.
Mm. Oh well. Final thoughts about Shona.
Are we going to finish this?
We'll
podcast?
finish it soon. I just love Shona.
We've said everything there is.
We
I
haven't.
Can possibly say.
I would like to say.
Yeah.
I thought it was very funny back in 2017 or so when everybody confused Julia Goulding for Nicola Thorpe. Because they looked very similar at the time, and they had T-shirts of each other saying, "I'm not Nicola Thorpe, I'm not Julia Goulding." That was quite funny. And I would also just like to say it's been lovely having some real life encounters with Julia Goulding in real life as well. 2 times that we've seen her, she just revealed that she was pregnant as well, didn't she? Remember the first time we were at the Coronation Street studios, and she was there just outside the reception, wasn't she? And I think that might have been like the very day that, or if not day then week, that she'd announced her first pregnancy. And we're like, oh, hello Julia, congratulations and everything. And then obviously last year at the Soap Awards when
subtle clues,
with me not realising, even though Sonia Matthews was pointing at her.
Yeah,
at her
literally
baby bum,
couldn't
that she
have
was
done
pregnant,
anything
that she was
else
pregnant.
to make it more obvious.
Yeah,
but there you go.
Yeah. But yes, lovely in real life, lovely on screen. Long may she continue on Coronation Street. She's
and
fabulous.
I want her to be. I want to watch Shona on the street until she's 80. And I want her to keep her rich.
I want to be able to do a character profile revisit of Shona in 10 years.
Yep.
I like this character profile of Shona has been a very, very long time coming because it feels like we should have done her by now, particularly how much we enjoy the character. And Peter's just never got around to it.
But I think it ties in nicely with what's going on.
Ties in with their return and everything.
And what's going on with Max. Because there's a bit of history there about Shona sounding the alarm bells very early on about this. And if only they'd listened to it.
This is maybe like the beginning of, if you look at MCU parlance, phase 3, maybe, of Shona on Coronation.
MCU?
Is that the
what
the
are you trying
Marvel
to say?
Cinematic Universe?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, I know these things.
It's not phase 1, 2 or 3. It's before the box and post box.
Well, yeah, that's right. Pre-box Shona, post-box Shona, and now and now we're
we're still
whatever this one's
post-box.
going to be. Yeah, but are we?
No, there's no more phases.
Post.
It's like Jesus. It's before him and after him.
Okay. And you'll never be the same again.
Never.
Right, let's finish this. I feel that you're
Julia Goulding
urging me to end
like
this
Jesus.
podcast.
Both thumbs up for both.
I approve of both.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you Julia Goulding for making a character that I absolutely adore. Don't leave the programme, please.
And thank you to all the writers who are great at doing,
just giving her the right things to say.
And Jack, also give a little shout out to Jack P. Shepherd, who's very underrated in the show. Don't know if you guys have noticed, but he's quite good in the scenes with Shona.
Yeah,
I think they should keep an eye on him. He's the star of the future.
Yeah. What? Keep an eye on. You heard it here first. So
yes,
we're done.
We're done now. Are we done?
After an hour and a half of Shona talk. Think that's enough.
Yes, go then.
We're going.